Association, Mataji. Thank you.
It's wonderful to have you as our teacher as well.
Thank you so much, Mataji. So I'll share the screen. Yeah. Today we are going to do Nectar of Devotion, chapter 4. So last class we finished 2 and 3. So we'll be continuing with chapter 4, which is devotional service surpasses all liberation. So which means devotees, they give least importance to liberation. They're not bothered about liberation. For them, devotional service is everything. For them, like for devotees, wherever they are in this, wherever, be it in any janma, wherever, their main intention is to do
Mataji,
devotion.
is the recording on?
Is it not on, Mataji?
Yes, yes, it's on, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Yeah. So, wherever they go, in whichever janma they are, their main intention is whether they are able to do devotional service or not. They are not bothered about liberation because liberation is just a byproduct of devotional service. It is secondary. For them, Krishna Prema is the main thing. Like doing devotional service and getting love of Krishna is the main thing. They're not bothered about liberation at all. So devotional service is way ahead, way above liberation. So that they'll give. So in this chapter, we'll see instances from Srimad Bhagavatam and other scriptures where devotees are quoted, where they tell us, where devotees like Prahlad Maharaj, Gajendra, and Bharat Maharaj and Prithu Maharaj, where many such devotees tell us that liberation is like very minimal. They're not even bothered, and they are more interested only in devotional service. Okay, so we'll see such examples. Only examples are there in today's class, where we'll see devotional service surpasses all liberation. So it means that a pure devotional service, it rejects bhukti and mukti. Bhukti means what? All material desires, right? Karma kandis, like even going to heavenly planets or even material desires, it rejects that. As well as mukti. Mukti means liberation. Earlier class we spoke, there are 5 kinds of liberation, right? They are not even interested in all these 5 kinds of liberation. So bhukti and mukti, pure devotees, they are not at all interested, right? So they are more interested only in pleasing Krishna by doing devotional services. So in the PPT you can see, okay, from here, right? See, chapter 4, devotional service surpasses all liberation. And devotional service surpasses liberation means they're saying devotee is attached to serving Krishna. A devotee, there is a shloka in Nectar of Devotion where we've seen, right? Anyabhilashita shunyam gnana karmadi anavritam anukulyena krishnanaseelanam bhaktir uttama. So, what is the highest bhakti or devotional service? What is uttama bhakti? Anya abhilashitam shunyam means anya, no other material desires, right? No material. What is pure devotional service? They are telling no, zero, shunyam, zero material desires. No, not even gnana karma means no karma kandi. No, you want to go to heavenly planets or heaven or all such things. You are not interested. Gnana, speculative knowledge, you are not interested. And what? Nana karmadi anavritam anukulyena krishnanaseelanam. And you should do bhakti such that it is favorable to Krishna, not unfavorable. See, even Kamsa, he did smaran of Krishna, but in a negative way. He was fearful of Krishna, he hated Krishna, he wanted to kill Krishna. So that is unfavorable. But we should do bhakti favorably. In the sense, we should love Krishna. We should do favorably to Krishna. So that is Uttama Bhakti. Just as the bhakti which Krishna desires. So we should do like how Arjuna, even though he didn't want to fight, because he had compassion for all his relatives. But what did Krishna say? Krishna said, see, I have brought all these adharmic people in one place so that I can kill all of them at one shot. And you are just being an instrument, right? I want you to be an instrument in killing all these people. So even though Arjuna, he didn't like killing all his relatives out of compassion, but because he wanted to please Krishna and he wanted to be an instrument in the hands of Krishna, he fought. Okay, so that is Uttama Bhakti. We do everything to please Krishna, even though we don't like it. Even Arjuna, actually, he was so compassionate, he didn't want to fight. But still, because Krishna wanted it, right? He did it just to please Krishna. Okay, so that is the highest bhakti. Even though we don't like it, but we do it to please Krishna because we know that Krishna is the ultimate, he's the supreme father. He knows what is good for us. We don't know what is good for us. We think at this moment this is good, but Krishna, he knows our past, present, future, and he plans accordingly. Right? For us, what Krishna does now, we may feel, why is Krishna doing this to me? But actually, Krishna knows our future. He knew our past. He knows our present. So he plans and he does everything for our best, for our good. So we should have that faith in Krishna and just depend on Krishna and just not leave Krishna when we get difficult situations. Just have faith in him and just continue with him. Okay. So here they're saying that devotee is attached to serving Krishna and he does not aspire to five liberations. So what are those five liberations? One is to be one with the Lord. That is Sayujya Mukti. Okay, Sayujya Mukti means what? They want to be one with the Lord. So these people, are mostly jnanis or yogis or impersonalists, mayavadis who want to become one with the Lord. They want to merge and become. They want to lose their individuality. See these people. See, I'll just try to explain what is who are these people who want to merge and become one, so that when the examples are coming, you can connect to this. Because I will, when I say gnanis and yogis and impersonal brahmajyoti, you can always bring this concept in mind. Okay, so I will not again repeat this concept again and again. So once and for all, I will just try to explain it here, and in the future examples, when I connect, you can always, when I say gnanis and yogis and impersonal brahmajyoti, you can please connect to this one, what I'm saying now. Okay, so these people, these gnanis or yogis that we're talking about, so these people, they basically they look for liberation from the material world. Why do they want liberation? Because they know that this material world is a miserable place where there is suffering, everything, difficulties, everything is there. It causes pain and everything. So they want to go away from this material world, get out of this material world. So what do? So they free themselves from the responsibilities and they renounce from their duties and they go to the forest. There, they read these Vedas and Upanishads. Okay, so why do they go from this material world? Because if they stay in the material world, they will have to do activity, right? They will have some roles and responsibility, duties and responsibilities. By doing that, you will get what do you get? You will get some karma. For any activity that you do, you will have good or bad karma, for which they think that they or generally you have to come back to this material world again to suffer or enjoy that good and bad karma. But they don't want to live here, right? That is their main idea. So that is why they don't stay in this material world, because they will get the reactions, good or bad. So again, they'll have to come back to this material world, which they don't want to. So that's why they renounce this material world. They don't want to do any duties. They go to the forest. There they start reading the Vedas and the Upanishads by themselves. They don't have any guru. They think they are intelligent. We call them gnanis. Okay, they think they are intelligent. They can read everything by themselves. They can analyze. Okay, they think. So they read the Vedas and the Upanishads and they come to the understanding that they are the soul. Okay, and after reading, they speculate now. They start speculating. They keep, like they saying it could be like this, it could be like that. So they imagine God to be impersonal because what do they think? If God is a person, even after liberation, when we go to God, they think that going back to the spiritual world is also like they think it is like in the material world. They think that there will be karma there also, but they don't know there will be no karma there, right? But they think because they don't know. So they think once we go, even after liberation, it means after death, even after death, we'll go to God. There also, if we do some activity, then again we'll be getting karma. Again, for that karma, we have to suffer and do everything. Then what is the use of doing so much tapasya? Again, if we get karma even after death also. So that is what they think, right? So that's why they imagine God is impersonal. If we made God as impersonal, then obviously, if he is impersonal light energy, then there will be no activity. As simple as that. So, what do these people? These people meditate. They meditate on the impersonal form of God, that is light. That impersonal Brahmajyoti is nothing but actually the effulgence that is coming from body of Krishna, right? So they want to merge into that light and they want to lose their individuality because they fear if there is individuality, then obviously they'll have to do some activity. So that's why they think they lose their individuality, they merge into the impersonal Brahman and they become one with God. Okay, so these are the Sahaja people who want to merge and become one with God. Okay, so this is one kind of mukti, to be one with the Lord. And second is to reside on the same planet as the Lord, that is Salokya, right? To reside on the same planet. They reside on the same planet as the Lord. And Sarshti means to have the same appearance. So you'll have the same amount of wealth that Lord Krishna has or Lord Vishnu has. Okay, so that is to have same appearance, to have same bodily features. So sarupya means you have seen, right, in many pictures like where Ajamila, the Vishnu Dutas come four-handed form, you see, right? So they are same as Vishnu, they look the same as Lord Vishnu Narayana, four-handed form. Okay, they have the same bodily features as Lord Vishnu or Narayana. And to have personal association, samipya. Okay, so they'll have a personal, very close association with the Lord. They'll be serving the Lord very closely, right? So all these are there. And what to speak of material benedictions? Okay, devotees, they don't want all these five liberations. Then what about material benedictions? They're least bothered about material benedictions. They don't have any interest on material desires. See, for example, one acharya of ours, Sanatan Goswami, once he had this Chintamani stone. Uh, so he put that in the dustbin. Actually, one person, he was very needy. He was very poor. He didn't have money. So one person told him that this Sanatan Goswami, this Swamiji Sanatan Goswami, he has a very valuable gem, Chintamani gem. You take it from him. He will give it to you if you ask. So that person, he goes to Sanatan Goswami and he asks that Chintamani gem. So Sanatan Goswami says, "See, you see a dustbin there. I've put the Chintamani jewel in that dustbin. You can please go and take it from there." So that person goes there and takes the Chintamani gem and he goes away happily. So with that Chintamani gem, he can get so much amount of gold. So wherever he touches, that iron will turn into gold. So he'll have so much gold. But on the way, halfway, he went and he thought, how come such a valuable gem he has thrown in the dustbin? It means that there is something more valuable that he has. That is why he has thrown this in the dustbin. So I want that. Why should I take this? Then he comes back. He comes to Sanatan Goswami and he asks him, see, I think you have something more valuable than this. I want that. I don't want this. Okay, you want that? Okay, then what you do is you throw this in the river, you have a bath, and you come to me. So he throws that Chintamani jewel and he comes to Sanatan Goswami, and Sanatan Goswami initiates him to the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. So he says, this is more valuable, this is more tasteful than that Chintamani jewel. I relish this chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra more than this Chintamani jewel. So they don't, the devotees, pure devotees, they don't care about all these material benedictions. They're least bothered because they've got that higher taste. See, when you get a higher taste, you are no longer interested in the lower taste. See, if you have a car, you are no longer interested in the old scooter that you have. Right? If you want to go to the office, you want to show off that I have a car. Now you earlier you used to go in a scooter, and now you have a car. So you want to show off to everybody. You still don't want to go on the same scooter, right? You have a car. You would like to go in the car, right? So if you get a higher this thing, you tend to neglect the lower one. So like that, when you get a higher taste for devotional service, you will leave all the lower things like liberation and material benedictions, bhukti and mukti, you will automatically leave. Okay. So now let's see what are the examples, references that they give. Right. So we see, right, first example they give is of Prithu Maharaj. He says, please give me millions of tongues and ears. I will never ask for emancipation. Okay, so he's saying Prithu Maharaj, he does not care for liberation. Okay, liberation is considered very great by ordinary philosophers and yogis. So we told, right, the yogis, nanis, they are afraid of this material world. That's why they want to get liberated. Just for the sake of liberation, they do all this process of tapasya, meditating on the impersonal Brahmajyoti, and they want to get liberation. Somehow they want to get. So these people, philosophers and jnanis, they are interested, but a devotee, he rejects this, right? A devotee rejects liberation if it does not include hearing and chanting about Krishna. Why? Because hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord is the real bliss of the soul. Okay, we are actually souls. We are what our swabhava is to serve the Lord. Only when we serve the Lord do we get bliss, happiness. That is only where we get happiness. We are searching for happiness in the wrong place. In all these material things, we are thinking, we think that if I buy this property, I will get happiness. If I get so much of wealth, I will get happiness. If I eat this, I will get happiness. If I go to a foreign tour, I will get happiness. If I go to this movie, I will get happiness. We think, try to find happiness in the wrong place. But the Swarupa of the soul is what? Jivera Swarupa hoy Krishnera Nityadas. We were created by Krishna to serve and please Him. Only then can we get happiness. But we are searching for happiness in the wrong place. Okay. So the devotee, he does not want to remain, he does not want to remain silent, that he does not want to merge and lose his individuality. Like we said, right, impersonalists, they want to merge into the impersonal Brahmajyoti and they want to lose their individuality. No, the devotee, he wants to maintain his individuality so that even after liberation, he can have that reciprocation with the Lord. He can serve the Lord, right? Not like the impersonalists. But the impersonalists, they want to merge into the existence of the Supreme, and they think, we've discussed, right? They think that uh, having individuality is a problem. Again, because they think their karmic reaction will take place. So that's why they don't want individuality. Okay. So that's why their liberation is incomplete. Why? Because there is no devotional service there. So the devotees say that such kind of liberation we don't want. We want liberation where we still maintain our individuality and we do devotional service to Lord. Okay. So that is what. So that's why Prithu Maharaj is saying that please give me millions of tongues and ears so that I can chant your glories and I can hear your glories. I never ask for emancipation. Emancipation means five types of liberation. I don't want. Okay, only just give me so many tongues that I can glorify you, and so many years you give me so that I can hear your glories. That's what I want, he's saying. Next, Bharat Maharaj, he easily gave up, gave up comforts and did not accept Lakshmi Ji's offers. See, King Bharat Maharaj, he was not an ordinary man. He was the emperor of the whole world. He had everything that people dream of. He had power, wealth, beautiful wife, loving children, friends, society, royal opulence, everything he had. I mean, nothing was lacking in his life. And still, how very easily he could give everything up. How? Because his heart was completely attached to the service of the lotus feet of Krishna. So this is an important point. See, if we are there in this material world, is it easy for us? Suppose we are on our deathbed and we have so much of property. We are always worried. Oh, what will happen to my property? What will happen to my business? What will happen to my wealth? We are still bothered about this only. We are least bothered about our what do you say, our liberation, our going back to Godhead. We are not worried that we didn't do bhakti. We are worried, oh, what will happen to my bank balance? What will happen to my properties? What will happen to my children? What will happen to my business? We are worried about this. But see here, Bharat Maharaj, he could give just like this. He could leave everything, so much of opulence. And even the let's see, goddess of fortune, she was ready to give him all kinds of material comforts. She was personally, Lakshmi Devi wanted to give him wealth, power, enjoyment, everything. Still, Bharat Maharaj did not accept any of it. He was not interested. Why? Because Krishna is in the heart. When Krishna is in the heart, nothing else can compete. So, when a person's heart is attracted to the transcendental qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, such a person does not even care for liberation. What to speak of material wealth? Forget about wealth and everything, property or whatever. Okay. For many people, see, just think about this. See, liberation is the goal of so many great sages. They perform great austerities for many lifetimes just to become free from material bondage. But a pure devotee does not even want that. What that does not want liberation. He thinks liberation means what? You will lose your individuality. But a pure devotee, he thinks he does not want that. He thinks, why should I give up my individuality? Why should I give up my service? I've been serving the Lord till now, and even after liberation, I will maintain my individuality. I will go and serve the Lord there also in Goloka Vrindavan. For a devotee, his only desire is, let me serve Krishna. Wherever he keeps me, that's okay. Let me just serve Krishna. Whether I'm in the material world, whether I'm in hell, or whether I'm in heaven, or whether I'm in Goloka Vrindavan or material world, let me just serve the Lord. The Lord can put me wherever He wants. But all I want to do is just please Him by doing devotional service. So, material enjoyment is lower, liberation is higher than material enjoyment, but pure devotion is higher than both liberation and material enjoyment. So, when the heart is captured by Krishna, everything else becomes insignificant automatically. Okay, so through Bharat Maharaj, we can understand that. Okay, next we see Srimad Bhagavatam 6.11.25. What does Vritrasura say? Vritrasura, he was a demon. He was actually a devotee, Chitraketu, in his previous birth. And because of the curse of Mother Parvati, he becomes a demon Chitraketu. Okay. So, what is Chitraketu saying? I may get heaven or other promotions, but I only want your association and service. See, he's not interested in all heaven or promotions. He's saying, Oh God, Krishna, I just want your association and your service. See, they're not interested in all these other material things and liberation. Okay, so this is one more example. So we've seen Prithu Maharaj, Bharat Maharaj. Now we'll see Vritrasura. See, Vritrasura, um, he shows fearlessness of a pure devotee. See, normally people are very afraid of going to hell or of losing position or of suffering, of death. So they are very fearful of all these things and they desire to go to higher planets. They want to get liberation. But a pure devotee, he does not think like this. Why? Because the devotee, pure devotee, has taken complete shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Narayana or Krishna. Right? Once a person fully depends on the Lord, heaven and hell become the same. Gain and loss become the same. Happiness and distress become the same. See, not because the devotee is careless, but because his happiness does not now depend on circumstances, because his happiness depends only on serving the Lord, because his focus is only on serving the Lord. He's not bothered whether it is raining outside, whether it is cold outside, whether it is hot outside. It is immaterial for him. The circumstance doesn't bother him. His main intention is serving the Lord. Am I doing it or not to please the Lord? Okay, so whether the Lord places him in a higher planet, Swarga, or in liberation, or even in hellish situation, the devotee remains peaceful and fearless because he thinks wherever Krishna keeps me, that is best. He knows what is good for me. He will do that for me. I am not bothered. He will take care of me. So that's why the devotee, he remains peaceful and fearless. Okay, so what we should understand here, see, the material world is constantly under change. See, whatever you see in this material world undergoes change for sure. It is changing. See, take your body itself. Initially, you were a baby, then you became a boy, then you became a youth, then we became adult, then you became a middle-aged person, then old age, and then you dwindle and you die. So there is change. Even if you buy a cell phone, for example, first it is it also has an expiry date, right? 1 or 2 years or 5 years. Then you have to buy a new one. So like that, everything in this material world, it undergoes constant change. But the devotee has taken shelter of something unchanging. Who is unchanging? Krishna. So he has taken shelter of Krishna, the Lord's lotus feet, who is unchanging. He is transcendent, eternal. He never changes, right? So that's why material position cannot disturb the devotees. So external situations cannot shake them. Okay, so that's why devotees never and they are never feared. They're always peaceful because they've always taken shelter of Lord Krishna. Okay, they're never fearless. Okay, so let's see. And second category of devotees are devotees of Vrindavan reject all desires for liberation, even Vaikuntha residents. See, the devotees of Vrindavan, they are on they are based on love. And in Vaikunta, see, there is no big difference between Vaikunta and Vrindavan. See, Vrindavana is also it's a spiritual planet. Vaikunta is also a spiritual planet. But the only difference is in Vaikunta, it is more of Aishwarya Bhava, and in Vrindavan, it is more of love, right? Where Vrindavan, we have different kinds of rasa like Vatsalya rasa, Sakya rasa, Madhurya rasa, and all these different kinds of rasas we have. But in Vaikunta, we have only Dasya and Shanta rasa, right? Where it's more of Aishwarya Bhava. You can't go to Vaikunta near Narayana and you can't put your hand on him and you can't say, I'm your friend. Now they will just send you out from Vaikunta. They'll just throw you out of Vaikunta. That you can do only in Vrindavan. right? How the gopis, they wrestle with Krishna, they put their hands on Krishna. So that is possible only in Vrindavan out of love, right? Out of Sakya. Okay, Sakya Rasa. When you have Sakya Rasa, you can do that. So that is the only difference between Vaikuntha and Vrindavan. Otherwise, both are spiritual planets. But the only thing is Vaikuntha, it is more of awe and reverence, respect, out of respect, servitude. And in Vrindavan, it is more, you have Madhurya Rasa, all different kinds of rasas are exhibited there, right? So that is the difference. Now let's go to the next slide. So more examples are given. See references of devotees rejecting bhukti and mukti. So now next they are talking. See only devotees who reject material desires and serve Lord know their real self-interest. Okay. So now this Indra is saying to Mother Diti. Okay, so Indra says that those who have given up all kinds of material desires and are simply engaged in devotional service to the Lord, such persons actually know what their real self-interest is. See, normally people they think self-interest means what? If somebody asks you what is that that interests you, we'll say money, position, family, comfort, sense enjoyment, or even we'll say liberation. But all this is temporary. Real self interest means to understand what? I am not this body. I'm an eternal, I'm soul. I'm an eternal servant of Krishna. So we have to understand that. So a person who's engaged in devotional service knows this perfectly well. So a pure devotee knows this. He is a soul and he is not this body. And his duty is to serve Lord Krishna. He is a servant, eternal servant of Krishna, and his duty is to serve Krishna and please Krishna. Okay, so therefore, here Indra says that such devotees are actually serving their own true interest. See, these people, they are not cheating themselves. See, okay, they are doing the correct thing, but others are working very hard day and night. They don't know, they're wasting their life actually, but because they do not, why are they working hard day and night? Because they don't know the goal of life. They're simply wasting their life, they're wasting their time working like donkeys. They're not able to eat properly, they're not able to sleep properly, they don't know the goal of life, simply working like donkeys, that's all. Okay, so such devotees are considered first class, who know the goal of life and who know that devotional service is the ultimate. Okay, they are called first class devotees. Why are they called first class? Because they are not confused. See, and they are not distracted by temporary goals. They are not running after sense gratification or dry liberation. Okay, they have chosen the direct path. Direct path means they are directly doing devotional service to Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Srila Prabhupada, he says that devotional service includes everything. If you do devotional service, all is included. Knowledge is included, renunciation is included, liberation is included. See, it's like if you water the root of the tree, the entire tree gets nourished. You don't have to water separately everything. If you just water the root, everything, whole tree gets nourished. So, like that, if you do devotional service, all other things are included. You don't have to do all separately. Renunciation, liberation, knowledge, no, all are inclusive. But actually, even though they are inclusive, a devotee does not care for these things. He only wants to serve Krishna. Right? That's the only thing he wants. Devotional service to Krishna. Okay. And what is Prahlad Maharaj saying in Srimad Bhagavatam 7.6.25? Prahlad is saying, just chant. Then no necessity of any spiritual emancipation. He's saying just chant the names of Narayana or Krishna, and he's not bothered about spiritual emancipation. Spiritual emancipation means spiritual liberation, the five liberations he's talking about. Okay, so Prahlad Maharaj, he teaches that pleasing Krishna is the perfection of life. If Krishna is satisfied, all desires are automatically fulfilled. So therefore, there is no need for karma kanda, sacrifices, material elevation, or even liberation. So he's saying, see, if we satisfy Krishna, means how can we satisfy Krishna? By doing devotional service. So if we do devotional service, all the other desires are automatically fulfilled. And it means if we satisfy Krishna through devotional service, all other desires are automatically fulfilled. And what are they? Karma kanda or sacrifice. You don't have to do these separately. Karma kanda, sacrifices, material elevation, liberation. You don't worry about that. All are inclusive. So just do devotional service for the Lord and please Krishna. All these are automatically included. And Prahlad Maharaj says that material results come automatically by nature. They automatically come. Like how difficulties and happiness come in this material world, like that material results will come. Happiness will come, difficulties will come. So you don't have to specifically strive for them. They will automatically come. And even liberation, and he's saying that liberation without devotion has no value. Like the impersonalists, right? They just want liberation. They don't want God. They don't want to serve Lord. They lose their individuality, right? They don't want any activity, right? So they are, Prahlad Maharaj is saying, I don't want liberation without devotion. It has no value at all. Okay. So one who is absorbed in hearing and chanting the Lord's glories has already surpassed wealth, heaven, rituals, and mukti. So, what are they trying to say here? Please, Krishna. Everything else becomes insignificant. Okay, so if you please Krishna, everybody is satisfied. So, that is the main thing. That's what Prahlad Maharaj is saying. If you please Krishna, that is your perfection of life. Okay, so next. 7.8.4 to Srimad Bhagavatam. O Lord, our duty is to always serve you. You are the enjoyer of everything. So here, the demigods, they are offering prayers to Lord Narsimha Deva. And among the demigods, Lord Indra is saying, see that Indra, he's trying to clarify. He's saying that the demigods are not independent enjoyers of sacrifice. Generally, when we do a yagna or something, we think that Indra is the bhokta of that sacrifice because he is the one who gives rain. But in fact, for any yagna that you do, the yagna bhokta is Vishnu or Krishna. So that is what Indra is trying to clarify here. See, the demigods are not independent enjoyers of sacrifice. See, all sacrificial results belong to only the Supreme Lord. Bhoktaram yagna tapasam. Right? So who's the Bhokta? It's Krishna or Vishnu. So the demigods, they just get a share only by the mercy of Krishna. Right? Only after first Krishna has, then the remnants go to the demigods. And here Indra is saying that when we lost the kingdom because of Hiranyakashipu, they are saying that we were not fearful that we lost the kingdom, or we were not fearful that we lost all our opulence. But because of Hiranyakashipu, our service to you was obstructed. So that is why Indra and the demigods were fearful. It's not that because they lost Hiranyakashipu took their kingdom or Hiranyakashipu took all their wealth, they were fearful. They were fearful because they were not able to do their devotional service to the Lord. Okay, so for devotees, pure devotees, when does fear arise? When their devotion is blocked. When someone blocks their devotion, when somebody does not let them do their devotional service, then fear arises. Otherwise, there is no fear for them. And that fear also goes when the Lord is remembered. Right? When the Lord is remembered, fear disappears. See, why did Narsimhadev come? By appearing as Lord Narsimhadev, the Lord removed their fear and restored peaceful remembrance. So, he killed Hiranyakashipu, right? He killed their fear. The demigods were fearful of Hiranyakashipu, right? So that's why he killed them. He killed Hiranyakashipu and he restored their bhakti and their peace. Okay, that is the duty of Narsimhadev. Generally, that's why devotees pray to Narsimhadev when their health is not good or when they have faced difficult situation. We immediately pray to Narsimhadev to please give protection to our bhakti. This is the problem. Please help us out. Okay, so Indra he admits that for devotees, material opulence and even liberation means nothing. The only duty of the living entity is service, it is not enjoyment. See, because we got this rare human form of life after many, many crores of janmas, and we should not just use it for animalistic propensities. We are not got this body to do the same thing that we did in the animal platform. All the previous janmas, we were doing sense gratification. Here in this janma, we are meant to do in this human body, we are meant to do tapasya. Right? What does Prabhupada say? Just give this one life to Krishna. See, you've been giving all your lives to Maya. Why don't you just give one life to Krishna and see the difference? Okay? So here that's why Indra is saying that devotees they don't care for material opulence and even forget about material opulence. They even don't even care for liberation. Okay, their only duty is just service to the Lord. So when they do service to the Lord, they it gives them peace, fearlessness, and satisfaction. Okay, and next they're talking about one more devotee, Gajendra. So Gajendra, what is he saying? I'm asking for favor, but I know devotees don't ask except your glorification. Okay, so what is Gajendra is saying? See, Gajendra is saying, he is humbly admitting that he is not fully experienced in the bliss of pure devotional service because he's an animal, right? He is not into that pure devotional service. So he asked the Lord for help, right? He is asking help, please help me, he being an animal, right? But he clearly understands that pure devotees who have served the lotus feet of great souls become free from material desires. Okay, those pure devotees who have served the lotus feet of great souls, they become free from material desires. That's why when we serve senior Vaishnavas or our Guru Maharaj, we become free from all material desires and contaminations. See, such devotees are always immersed in the ocean of transcendental bliss and feel complete satisfaction simply by glorifying the Lord's divine qualities. So they're talking about devotees like our very own Srila Prabhupada and our Prabhupada's disciples who have dedicated their everything in the service of Lord Krishna. Okay, it's such devotees, if we serve them, we get purified automatically. All our material desires, material contaminations will go away. So, pure devotees, they don't desire anything, they don't pray for anything except for devotional service. Okay, and the Nagapatnis, one more example they're telling here. Since Nagapatnis, we know, right? Kalia's wives. Um, any they were pure devotees. Even though Kalia is not a devotee, their wives were devotees of Lord Krishna. That is why he spared Kalia. He didn't kill Kalia because if you see, all the remaining demons were killed. He wanted to kill Kalia also, but at that time he saw his wives came who were pure devotees of Krishna. So that is why when they requested, the Nagapati requested, they did not kill Kalia. And so that's why he asked him to leave the river Yamuna and go to some other place. Right? So now what are the Nagapatnis saying? Anyone who gets the dust of your lotus feet does not care a fig or anything else. So, in fact, the Nagapatnis glorify the dust of the Lord's lotus feet as supremely wonderful because they were wondering. See, Kalia was such a sinful person, he didn't even worship Lord Krishna, but still, even he didn't do anything. Krishna's lotus feet were dancing on all of the thousand roots of Kalia. So that is why they're glorifying Krishna's lotus feet. How merciful you are, Krishna, that you have given mercy to our husband by stepping on all his heads. You put your lotus feet. The dust of your lotus feet is on his head. He didn't even worship you, he didn't even pray for you. And many people are actually looking for the darshan of your lotus feet. But this Kalia, he didn't do anything, any tapas, nothing he did. In fact, he behaved like an enemy to you. You gave him such a blessing that you put the dust of your lotus feet on all his heads. You stamped his heads with your lotus, the dust of your lotus feet, and you removed all the kalmashas that he had. He was when Krishna was dancing on Kalia's hoods, he was what do you say? Giving out all that poison was coming out from his mouth. He was what do you say? Vomiting out all that things. So it means all his impurities were coming out because Krishna has put the dust of his lotus feet on his head and he's trying to purify Kalya. Okay, so that's why the Nagapatnis, they're praising the dust of the Lord's lotus feet as supremely wonderful. And they're saying that anyone who attains this dust becomes so spiritually fulfilled that he no longer desires heavenly enjoyment, or he does not want mystic yoga powers or even liberation. So, in other words, what are these Nagapatnis saying? Devotional service at the Lord's lotus feet is so complete and satisfying that nothing else, not even liberation or material desires, nothing comes in between. Okay, so that is what the Nagapatnis are saying. They are praising devotional service to be the ultimate. Okay, so now this is your devotees have rejected all comforts and fully merged in devotional service. Where is this? Okay, so this is like the Lord of Vaikunta. Yeah, I think it is that only. But please give me a second. I'll just try to open the Nectar of Devotion. Ten dot 87.21. So this is the 10th canto, 87th chapter, 21, right? Yeah. They're talking about the Shrutis here. Okay. So the Shrutis, the Vedas personified. The Vedas are nothing but what they're called Shrutis, right? Shruti means what we hear the mantras. So that's why they call Shrutis. The Shrutis, they are praying to the Lord. They're saying that the spiritual knowledge, what is the spiritual knowledge? Understanding the self, understanding the soul and the super soul, they are saying is extremely difficult to grasp. Maybe philosophers may try, but only a few succeed in realizing the supreme personality of Godhead. So they're saying to make this knowledge accessible, the Lord appears in his original form, like Sri Krishna, teaching Arjuna so that people can understand and benefit from it. See, not everybody can understand, right? Only few philosophers or gnani, they can read the Vedas and the Upanishads and they can understand and they can realize the supreme personality of Godhead. So, but he's saying, but the Shrutis and the Vedas are saying, to make this knowledge accessible, you have come as Krishna and you've advised that to Arjuna so that you can propagate this knowledge to everybody, so that everybody can understand and benefit from it. While the impersonalists seek liberation by giving up material life, see, when the impersonalists they read the Bhagavad Gita, they take up to liberation, but devotees go beyond that. They renounce material desires and they enjoy the bliss of chanting and hearing Lord's pastimes. For them, liberation is nothing. For devotees, they go higher, they go for devotional service. Right? They are not interested in liberation, they go for devotional service. Okay, so next, let's see what Krishna is telling to Uddhava. My devotees won't even accept four kinds of spiritual opulences. So that's what Krishna is saying. Four kinds of spiritual opulences means the liberations he's talking about. Okay. So here Lord Krishna is telling Uddhava that pure devotees fully surrender to his service have no other desires. See, when we say pure devotee, they have no other desire except to please Krishna. Nothing else they have in mind. How can I satisfy Krishna? That's all. When pure devotee is said, that is all. The devotional service is there in their mind. How can I please Krishna? How can I satisfy Krishna? Even if they are given four kinds of spiritual opulences like sainthood, opulent body, wealth, or liberation, okay, all these are given, they will refuse because their hearts are completely absorbed in serving the Lord. And one more thing Prabhupada says in the purport, similarly, a devotee, he does not aspire for the post of Brahma or Indra, or he does not even want lordship over the planets, he does not want mystic powers, or he does not even want liberation itself. See, all these he does not want. The pure devotees only desire to serve the Lord and relish his pastimes. Nothing else they want. Okay, so next in 10.14.14, um, my devotee does not want Brahma. We've seen this also, right? My devotee does not want Brahma, Indra's post, or eight mystic this thing also. And in 12.10.6, Lord Shiva, he says, Markandeya has attained pure love, therefore does not aspire for any benediction. Okay, so here Lord Shiva, he tells about sage Markandeya. He has such unwavering devotion that he does not seek for any benedictions, not even liberation. Okay, Lord Shiva is telling this about Markandeya. And next, Damodara Ashtakam in Padma Purana. So we do this right in the month of Kartika in Vrindavan. We play to Lord Damodara. Right? The Damodara means what? It's Krishna's form as a naughty child tied with a rope by his mother Yashoda. Right? Dama means what? Rope, and Udara means belly. So that's why we call him Damodara. It comes from Krishna being tied around his belly. Okay, so devotee offer prayers like what do we pray in Damodar Ashtakam? Oh my Lord, you are the giver of all benediction. I do not even ask for liberation or any material opulence. I only wish to always think of your beautiful Damodara form. I think it's the fourth verse, right? So in that we say we don't want anything. We just want to think of your beautiful form as Damodara. Okay, so this shows the pure devotee's heart. The love of Krishna's form is the highest desire. So they want to think only of the beautiful form of Damodara, and they don't want anything material. I mean, that's the highest desire. Everything else in the material or the spiritual worlds. Okay, and one more thing in the same thing, we see how Krishna he delivers Kuvera's sons, Nalakuvara and Manigriva. So actually, these two boys they were proud because they were very rich, right? They were sons of Kuvera. They had so much money, so they were like very proud. So they behave badly with Narada Muni. They don't dress properly, and Narada Muni curses them to become Yamala Arjuna trees in Nanda Maharaj's garden. that is courtyard. But now sages generally curse. Whatever they do is for it's like a blessing. They never get angry. Whatever they do is good. But this curse was actually a blessing, because they could see the pastimes of Krishna right from when he was a baby. They could see the pastime, because there were trees in Nanda Maharaj's courtyard. So they were so fortunate that they were able to see all the pastimes of Krishna, right from the time he was there as a baby, right? So later, when Krishna he grew up, and when he was tied to the grinding mortar by Mother Yashoda, and he drags it, and then he comes to those particular trees, and he tries to pull the mortar in between the two trees, and the two trees, Yamala Arjuna trees, they fall down, and out of them that Nalakuvera and Maniguru come out, and they were delivered, right? Okay, after that, they pray that please give us the benediction that we do your devotional service, and Krishna blesses them and they leave away. Okay, so what do we understand? See, even like what seems like punishment can be a merciful arrangement of the Lord. We initially thought that Narada Muni punished them, right? But that punishment turned out to be mercy of Krishna. That is like it's a blessing, right? They were able to be delivered by Krishna, saw Krishna face to face. They could see the pastimes of Krishna right from the time he was a baby, right? It's a blessing. Okay, leading souls to devotional service. So they were finally blessed with devotional service, right? Because of that curse. I mean, it's not a curse, actually, it's a blessing. Because of that blessing, they were able to do pure devotional service. Okay, so the devotee's only prayer is to always remain absorbed in the pastimes of Krishna, like Damodara, without desiring anything else. Okay, so let's see some more examples of Bhukti and Mukti from our Shastras. Now, Hayashirsha Pancharatra, what is it saying? Hanuman is glorious, and thus I always wish only to serve you. Okay, so in the higher shades of Pancharatra teaches the pure mode of devotional service. A devotee prays to the Lord. I do not want religious merit. I don't want economic development, sense enjoyment, or even liberation. I only want your eternal servant. I want to be your eternal servant at your lotus feet. So this is pure bhaktis, service without any desire for reward. Okay, when Lord Narasimhadeva offered benedictions to Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad refused all material favors. He only prayed to remain an eternal devotee of the Lord. Okay, so to explain this mood, Prahlad he gave an example of Hanuman. Hanuman, we know, he is a perfect servant of Lord Ramachandra. See, Hanuman, he never asked for wealth, power, or even liberation. His only desire was to serve the Lord eternally. Okay, that's why he is worshipped by all devotees as the ideal servant. Okay, so next we see in Srimad Bhagavatam 6.14.5, I have heard even those liberated have to become devotees, and they are very, very rare. What is this 6.14.5? Not able to locate. Where is this 6 dot? Here. 6.5 dot. No, it's 6.14.5. Okay, it's this one. Maharaj Parikshit inquires from Sukadev Goswami. Okay. Okay. So I've heard even those liberated have to become devotees and they are very, very rare. So here, Maharaj Parikshit, he is asking Sukadev Goswami, "Oh Brahmana, I'm surprised. See, Vritrasura, a demon, absorbed." We heard about Vritrasura, right? He was a demon, right? So here Maharaj Parikshit is asking Sukadev Goswami, like, I'm surprised Vritrasura was a demon. He is in the mode of passion and ignorance. How did he become a perfect devotee of Narayana? Okay, even highly liberated sages rarely attain such devotion. So, what should we understand here? Many people may achieve liberation or merge into the impersonal Brahman, but becoming a devotee of Supreme Lord is far rarer and more precious. So, out of earlier we've seen, right, in Bhagavad Gita, out of millions of liberated souls, one will become a pure devotee of Lord Krishna. See, out of how many millions of liberated souls, one will take to pure devotional. So rare is a Krishna devotee. So, if you get association of such pure Krishna devotees, please try to understand. Please don't neglect such association. That's why we say satsang is so important. All like uh, in the whole world, hardly 1 or 2% are devotees of Krishna. And when you come into association of such Krishna devotees, if you start finding faults in them and you get far away from satsang, you're losing so much. Okay, so please try to associate with devotees and just try to see the positive qualities, because initially everybody is like a what do you say? They're a patient. They're like a patient in a hospital. Not everybody is like will become pure devotees in one day. So in a satsang, you have different levels. Like in cancer, you have stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, right? So until you become a pure devotee, you will have defects, you will have faults. So slowly, by chanting and by doing devotional service, your impurities will reduce, right? Your disease will get cured, but not all of a sudden, right? The devotees will still have faults and impurities. So we should try to see the good in them, and we should try to do satsang with them, right? Because gradually, they initially, all of us will have impurities. We are not pure devotees in this upper stage itself, right? So we should see the positive, and we should think ourselves fortunate that we are in association of Krishna devotees. That itself is the first thing. We are blessed, right? So we think like that and we proceed in our Krishna consciousness, right? Okay, so now they're saying if 1.8.20 Srimad Bhagavatam, if Paramahamsas alone can know you, I am less intelligence. How can I know you? So Queen Kunti is saying, so Queen Kunti is actually a lady, right? So when Krishna, after giving them the kingdom and everything, he's leaving. Kunti Maharani, she comes and she stops Lord Krishna and she says, "My dear Krishna, you're so great that even the greatest scholars and fully liberated souls cannot comprehend you. If they cannot understand you, how can an ordinary person like us, especially women, humble women, even grasp your glories?" So see, actually Kunti Maharani, she's such a great devotee of Lord Krishna. But see, she's undermining herself. I mean, she's being so humble that she's saying great scholars and liberated souls only can't understand you. How can I? After all, I'm a woman. How can I understand your glories? So, what do we understand from this? See, spiritual understanding does not depend on scholarly learning or social position. It's not how much knowledge you have, it comes from humility. how much humble you are, how much devotion you have, how much love for Krishna you have. Like Queen Kunti, even though she's such a highly exalted devotee, she's comparing herself as nothing. She's saying highly scholars and philosophers, they do tapas for so many years, even they can't get you, they can't understand you, and I am just after all a woman. How can I understand you? So it is not that in when you come to bhakti, I know so many shlokas, I know so much of I have so much of knowledge. I know the Bhagavad Gita. I can tell the Srimad Bhagavatam. That education, that is not the qualification. Like, or I'm a temple president in a this thing. I manage all this. I'm a high kirtaniya. I cook so I'm the best cook. No, this is not a thing. Main thing is it comes from humility, how humble you are, how devoted you are, how much love for Krishna you have. That is important. That is what Queen Kunti is trying to tell us here. And the Atma Rama verse, even those who are liberated are attracted by transcendental qualities of Krishna. So here they're saying generally those who are want to undergo liberation, they don't care about God. We saw, right? They want to merge into the impersonal Brahman and they lose their individuality and they want to become one with God. But here they're saying the Atma Rama verse shows that even fully liberated souls are attracted to Krishna's pastimes. So, what are they trying to say? They're proving that Krishna's glories are purely spiritual, they are not material. That's why devotees do not seek liberation. See, of the five types of liberation, devotees reject Sayujya. They are scared of Sayujya. They don't want to even look that side, merging and becoming one, because when they merge with God they lose their individuality and they will not be able to do any devotional service, so they don't even want that. But the other four are there, right? The other four initially they may be interested, right? In Vaikuntha Loka, all these four other muktis they are interested, they take up. But ultimately when by doing devotional service they develop pure love for Krishna, and then when they develop pure love they go from the Vaikuntha planets to Goloka Vrindavan, right? So among all the devotees, the topmost devotee is one who is attracted to Krishna in Vrindavan. So we should understand this, right? Among all the devotees, the topmost devotee is the one who is attracted to Krishna in Vrindavan. Such a devotee is not impressed by the opulence of Vaikuntha or even Dwaraka. Even worshipping, what they're saying is worshipping Narayana in Vaikuntha or even Krishna in Dwaraka. Krishna in Vrindavana is the topmost. Okay, or even Dwaraka, but only by Krishna's sweet, intimate pastimes in Gokula. See, in Vrindavan, that is the best of all because it has we can taste the sweet, intimate pastimes in Gokula. That's why it is considered Krishna and Vrindavana is the topmost. Okay, so Rupa Goswami says that Vrindavan Krishna is the highest perfection, not Dwaraka Krishna or Mathura Krishna or Vaikuntha Narayana. Rupa Goswami is saying devotion to Vrindavana Krishna is the highest perfection. And one more thing, Rupa Goswami says, although the Lord appears in many forms, and all are equal. See, any form is equal, right? Like Lord Rama, Lord Narsimhadev, anything, any of the forms are equal. But Krishna is the original form, and from Krishna, all the other forms come. Okay, so a pure devotee may be due to deep attraction. He may serve one particular form only. Like for example, if you take Hanumanji, Hanumanji, he knows that Rama and Lord Rama and Lord Narayana are the same. He knows, but he wanted to serve only Lord Ramachandra. right? He knew that Narayana and Lord Rama are same, but still he wanted to serve Lord in the form of Lord Rama. Okay, so like that, while all the devotees are exalted, devotees of Krishna are considered the foremost of all. So we try to worship Krishna in Vrindavan. That is the foremost of all. Okay. So now devotees of Vrindavan reject all desires of liberation, even Vaikuntha residents. So they devotees of Vrindavan forget about material desires and forget about liberation also. And liberation also they do in that also they don't want to go. Forget about liberation. They don't want to, even want to go to Vaikuntha residence. They want to only go to Goloka Vrindavan. Okay. So, what are the five kinds of liberation? We saw, right? Becoming one with the Lord, that is Sayuja, to live on the same planet, same bodily features, same opulences as the Lord, constant association of the Lord. Okay. And devotees specifically reject first type of liberation. We saw, right? They don't want Sayuja liberation because they don't want to become one with the Lord. Because when you become one with the Lord, you lose your individual existence. And then there'll be no reciprocation with the Lord, right? So that's why devotees, they don't want they reject the first type of liberation. And some devotees may accept the other four types, right? We discussed all this, but it's just in the PPT. I'm trying to just read it out again. They may accept the other four types of liberation, but as they mature, love becomes prominent. See, the other four, first one is Sayuja. The remaining four, the devotees may accept, but as the love matures, devotional service matures, and love develops, then they get promoted to Goloka Vrindavan. So from the Vaikuntha planet, they get promoted to Goloka Vrindavan, right? And Vrindavan devotees, however, only want to please Krishna, right? Obviously, Vrindavan devotees, they have Krishna only in mind. They don't have Narayana or anybody, Lord Rama, anybody in mind. They want to please only Krishna. So not even any of the four types. Not they don't want Vishnu or Narayana. Four types of liberation means it happens only in Vaikuntha planets, right? When Narayana, Lord Narayana or Vishnu resides. So so not even any of the four types. They're not interested in all those. Purest of the pure devotee, right? And if attached to particular form, doesn't redirect devotion to other forms. Like we've seen, right? Hanuman, though he knows that Lord Narayana and Lord Rama are the same, but Hanuman, his devotion was fixed on the form of Lord Ram. And he wanted to serve only Lord in the form of Lord Ram. Okay? So we finished that. Yeah. For today, we'll just try to stop here. Chapter 5, we'll take it next week. And if any of the devotees have doubts,